It's Brunchin with Marinaro. We're going to preview the Canadiens game in New York versus the Islanders. They'll host the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow. And some shocking revelations in Eric Engel's interview with Montreal Canadiens Executive VP of Hockey Ops, Jeff Gordon. We'll tackle it all today on this Sunday morning on the Sick Podcast, Brunchin with Marinaro.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer. Intense by nature.
And joining me today, as he usually does on these Sunday mornings from the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com, Stu Cowan. What's going on?
Hey, Tony, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Stu. It's game day, of course, and you and I are going to talk about the Canadiens visiting the Islanders. They'll host the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow and everything else that's going on Montreal Canadiens hockey. It's the Sick Podcast, and it's brought to you by and presented by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. All right, okay, let's get to it. A Cole Caufield who's really benefiting from Marty St. Louis as his head coach, too.
Without a doubt. I mean, the kid grew up wearing number 26 because Marty St. Louis was his favorite player. And he just looks more like the Cole Caufield we saw when he first came up with Canadiens last season in the playoffs, playing with confidence. That's the word you hear so often with NHL players or any pro athletes talking about. And he mentioned the other day that Marty St. Louis has confidence in him. He played the most ice time he's ever played in his NHL career, I believe, the last game. Marty St. Louis is using him in all kinds of different situations. And as Caufield said, when Marty St. Louis speaks, he listens. So, yeah, it's nice to see. Before I was thinking Caufield will probably get sent back to the Laval Rocket to finish up the season. But right now, I doubt that's going to happen. It looks like he's going to stay here.
Yeah, you know what? I thought it would be best as well. I was seeing him go. I think at one point, Stu, he had like a goal in 28 or 29 games or whatever it was. And you just saw his confidence dipping and dipping and dipping and dipping. And Marty St. Louis comes in and he talks about preferring concepts and not systems, which allows more freedom to a lot of the skilled players. And you could tell that Marty St. Louis looks at Cole Caufield and says, I used to be him once upon a time. And so what did I like when I was playing? How did I like to be coached? What situations did I want to be put in? And you know what? I used to be small too, and it didn't matter, and I didn't care. And you know what? I shouldn't have paid the price for it. And I think he relates with Cole Caufield a lot and says, you know what? I'm going to give him ice time. You know what? I'm going to play him with good players. You know what? I'm going to put him out there for a key power play. You know what? I'm going to put him out there at the end of the game when I need a goal. And when he scores that goal, you know what? I'm going to start the overtime with him. And just because he didn't score in his first shift of overtime, I'm going to come back with him. And it's obviously paying huge dividends too.
And Marty St. Louis knows what it's like to be a small player in the NHL. And one of the things, not only was Cole Caufield playing with a lack of confidence, he looked like he was timid on the ice. He looked like he was hesitant going into corners, hesitant going into dirty areas on the ice. And what better guy than Marty St. Louis to show Cole Caufield different ways to find that open ice in the offensive zone without getting run over by a 6'4", 220-pound defenseman. So it's this is going to be the rest of this season is going to be a mini training camp almost for the Canadiens and a learning experience for these young guys. As I mentioned before, Cole Caufield even said it. Everything that Marty St. Louis tells him, he listens 100%. And you're talking about playing with more freedom. Dan Robertson, our buddy, I think nailed it when he said Dominic Ducharme was coaching systems more than he was coaching players. And I think he didn't allow the players to just play. It was all about the system and all about what they had to do. And, Jeff Petrie expressed his frustration over it. I'm sure Jeff Petrie was speaking for other guys in the locker room when he spoke up about how they didn't like the system, how it wasn't working. Yeah. Dominic Ducharme seemed to be stubborn and stick with it. He said he made minor tweaks along the way, but nothing major. Marty St. Louis come in and change the way these guys play, change the way they practices. The practices are a lot of fun to watch, all these little mini 3-on-3 games, getting guys used to working in tight spaces and having to think fast. And that's what he wants. Marty St. Louis said, I'd rather have a guy make a wrong read than be afraid to make a read. And that's the way the players are playing now. They're playing hockey. They're not thinking too much. They're playing the game that they grew up playing and loving.
It's funny, Stu, because the minute I saw Marty St. Louis speak, and I tweeted something about this, and I ended up tweeting about Pep Guardiola, who's a very famous football manager, already one of the greatest football managers of all time. He's with Man City now. He's with Bayern before that. He started off with Barca B, which was in the Tercera division, and then after 11 months, he got moved up to coach Barcelona. Those Barcelona teams, one of the most exciting teams of all time. Pep Guardiola believes in concepts, and he believes a lot in a lot of small-sided exercises so that you pass the ball around and you try and value ball possession more than anything else. And he's had teams that have even played without strikers and they still score more goals than other teams. And it's about, if we have the ball, the other team doesn't have the ball. And if the other team gets the ball from us, within 5 seconds, we have to put a tremendous amount of pressure and get the ball back. And the more I heard Marty St. Louis talk, I said to myself, oh my God, he sounds like Pep Guardiola. And I said, watch him introduce a lot of small-sided exercises, which he's done, playing the 3-on-3, by the way, bringing two nets very, very close together and trying to hold on to the puck. And if you lose the puck, you try and get the puck back. And it's very, very similar to me. As a matter of fact, the next time, when I have a chance to talk to Marty St. Louis, I think it's something that I want to bring up. I think it's very interesting in that regard.
Well, the thing is that, Marty, too, I've seen the 3-on-3 drills before. Yeah. But I haven't seen it the way he did it, where the guys who aren't in the 3-on-3 game are lined up on each side, but they're in the game. You can pass to them. So everybody's alert. Everybody's aware of what's going on. And it's really, you can tell the guys are having fun playing it and, celebrating after they scored. And, the team hasn't had a lot of fun this season, but they're also getting used to making quick decisions with guys on top of them all the time and working in tight spaces, which is what it is a lot in the NHL, in both the offensive and the defensive zone. But just having everybody involved in that 3-on-3 game. Guys aren't on the side just watching, not really paying attention. You got to be in the game because the puck can come to you at any point also. And
it's funny, Stu, it's really, really funny. The same thing is used in soccer where you have guys on the sidelines and you can use them so you can actually pass the puck to them. They can pass it back to you. So everyone's involved, everyone's engaged, everyone's using their head as well. It's really brilliant. You talked about fun. They weren't having a lot of fun. They had, 8 wins in 45 games when Dominique Ducharme was let go. They were miserable. Some players wanted out. The players who were still here didn't like what was going on, obviously. It was a miserable, miserable time. And you talk about, doing something to have fun. Well, you start doing that, and then all of a sudden the players start having fun, like you said. I think it's a really awesome thing. Okay, so now from Marty St. Louis to his former teammate, Vincent Lecavalier, who was hired a couple of days ago. Your thoughts on that?
I could see it coming because I had a one-on-one with Kent Hughes the Friday before, and I asked him about rumors or talk that Vinny Lecavalier was going to come to the team, and he said he will if I have anything to do with it. He said it won't be as the assistant GM, as had been rumored by a lot of people, but he said if I have anything to do with it, he's going to come. So Marty St. Louis, Vinny Lecavalier has got 3 young kids. They're 8, 10, and 11. He's not ready to uproot his family right now in Tampa, but I think the Canadians wanted to get him in the organization as soon as they could. I imagine they have bigger plans for him down the road in the future. Lecavalier spoke on the Zoom conference about how Marty St. Louis always talked about how he wanted to be a head coach. He wanted to be a coach after he retired. And at the time, Vinny was thinking, wow, maybe I'll be an assistant coach with him one day. But this gets him in the organization. He's going to be watching a lot of video. And it's just another, Kent Hughes was his agent. And they know each other really well. And as Vinny said, I'm not afraid to argue with Kent and have a different opinion from him. We've been talking hockey for 20 years. So they obviously Gorton and Hughes want to surround themselves with people they know and trust. Some people are criticizing them, saying it's like a country club atmosphere. But they want to have people they know and trust around there and people that aren't afraid to have different opinions and express different opinions with them. And that's what it's going to be with Vinny Lecavalier. And I think this is just the first step of him moving forward. I imagine he will have a bigger role as time goes on. Yeah. But it gets him in, it gets him involved. They're building sort of another. Marty St. Louis walks in the locker room and has instant respect as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Vinny Lecavalier won the Rocket Richard's trophy. leading scorer in the NHL. This team has struggled to score goals for a long time. Vinny said, he's looking forward to talking with the players and a young Cole Caufield, a young Nick Suzuki. So to me, I don't see a downside about bringing Lecavalier into the organization and getting him in, let him get his feet wet in the hockey operations department. And as Vinny said, he's going to be involved in just about all aspects of the hockey operations department.
Yeah.
And moving forward, I think they'll figure out where he might fit best in a future role.
Stu, make no mistake. The second they hired Kent Hughes, they hired Vinny Lecavalier as well. I mean, that goes without saying. It was just a question of finding a role for him or a title for him, which didn't necessitate a relocation because he wasn't going to relocate. Another thing that I think happened is even though he was hired from day one, they wanted to spread out the news, right? So you hire Kent Hughes, hire Jeff Gordon one day, and then you hire Kent Hughes like a month later, and then you hire Vinny Lecavalier or like a month later, and Marty St. Louis a couple of weeks before him, so that all the news doesn't all come at once type of thing.
And Vinny even said he'd been watching video for the Canadiens for 3 weeks. Heineman, one of the reasons they got Heineman in the trade is Hughes called Vinny and said, I want you to watch this guy and tell me what you think about him. So he had already been working for the Canadiens for 2 or 3 weeks before the official announcement came out.
All right, okay. We have plenty of questions to get to. For those who are watching the show for the very first time, welcome, and thank you for doing so. I think we're building something pretty special here on the Sick Podcast. And what we do is you can throw out your questions, you can throw out your comments. We try and tackle as many of them as we can. Sharing is caring. Share this with your friends. You can follow us, by the way, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram at the Sick Podcasts. We are going live on Sundays, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely for free to subscribe at the Sick Podcast. And the beauty of these social media apps is that the second that we upload an episode or we go live, you can immediately be notified once it's uploaded or once we go live. All right, okay. I have a question of the day before I get to your questions, and so some of your answers can come in. The Canadiens hired Marty St. Louis as their coach, and they hired Vincent Lecavalier as a special advisor to the hockey ops. My question today, which former NHLer would you like to see hired in the organization and to fill which role? So the next one to be hired, if it's another former NHLer, who do you want that to be and what role do you see for them? All right, okay. Now we'll get to some of your questions. Let's get to them. Newfound Habs. Are the Habs walking a tightrope if Sherratt plays today? Stu?
Yes, and Kent Hughes even spoke about that. It's a risk-reward thing. Sherratt took part in practices all week, even though he was on injured reserve. And I'm sure the teams that are interested in acquiring him want to see him play again to make sure he's healthy. So they're going to have to play him and just cross their fingers and hope that he doesn't get a slap shot off the ankle or something like that. But it's a risk-reward business. And Kent Hughes spoke about that the other day. And as he said, whether you're buying stocks or selling stocks or trading hockey players, there's risk involved. And the teams that are interested in Sherratt are going to want to see him back on the ice, I'm pretty sure, to make sure that he's okay and ready to go and can still be effective.
Stu, our buddy Eric Engels of Sportsnet sat down with Jeff Gordon for about 40 minutes, and there's a lot that we can take from their conversation. Several things caught my attention, one of which was living arrangements, doctors, workouts. We'll bring it up, and I'll read it for you. I think the players have to know that we care about them on and off the ice, Gordon said. It's the way the world works now. Listen, it's a huge part of the game. I think you do have to make sure that the players know that we're fully invested to do everything we can to take care of everything off the ice that they needed, which includes their families. And it's the little things, but they're big things. Whether it's taking care of their living arrangements, they need doctors, whatever they need to know that we're able to handle that. Ultimately, I think the thing to say is we can take care of everything away from the ice and just let them concentrate on being good hockey players. And I think when they show up every day and it's a positive environment, that we're taking care of their nutritional needs and their workouts, that's something too. We're going to have the proper planning in place with everything so that everyone understands that we're doing the right things on and off the ice, and we need to take care of their families. Stu, without saying it, correct me if I'm wrong, and this courtesy of sportsnet.ca, by the way, for Jeff Gordon to bring this up, it leads me to believe that these are things that were neglected in the past.
Yeah, when Gorton came in here, I mean, it took a while before he hired Ken Hughes. He wanted to come in here and figure out how this whole organization worked. What were the weak points? What were the strong points? And there's obviously a lot of weak points. I mean, one is he mentioned, they've had no analytics department whatsoever. Player development, they only have two guys, Francis Bouillon and
Rob Ramage.
Rob Ramage as their player development. It's the only two guys. Then you expand that, and it looks like it goes beyond that now when you're talking about stuff off the ice. And it's hard to get free agents to come here. Vinny Lecavalier spoke about that the other day. And, it's not always the city. Vinny Lecavalier said when he was a free agent and he went to the Flyers weren't the team he wanted to go to originally, but at the top of his list was a coach. He wanted a coach that he wanted to play for. He met Peter Laviolette. He really was impressed by him, and he signed with Philadelphia. At the time, the coach here was Michel Therrien. He said it wasn't a knock on Michel Therrien, but it's obviously he didn't want to come here and play for Michel Therrien. So there's so many other things. And the adjustment here in Montreal, people talk about the taxes and the weather, the obvious things. There's also the language thing. I remember talking with a former player's wife, and she was telling me she came here and she was open to the whole idea. They were living on the South Shore near the practice rink, and she understood it was French here, but she didn't realize how French. Like, she didn't realize when the UPS guy came to her door, he didn't speak a word of English, and she was struggling with that. So it's a big adjustment, more so for the families and the players when they come here, especially with the language issue, just adjusting to living in a French environment in Quebec and in Montreal. So there's all those different kinds of things. Eric's story was fantastic. He also talked about nutrition.
And I want to get to that, okay? In terms of nutrition, the one thing that really stood out to me, and by the way, they are very well nutritioned here in Montreal. I can tell you that for a fact, because the catering is courtesy of Prima Luna on Henry Barassa and RDP, and the gentleman who's the owner of the establishment, Andrea, happens to be a dear friend of mine, and it's, in my opinion, it's one of the best restaurants, not only in Montreal, but in Canada. But, they're taken care of in terms of nutrition incredibly well here. But
they
as
eat well,
Eric pointed out,
the sports complex. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen the truck outside. They have a full kitchen, and a lot of the guys show up there. They have breakfast, they have lunch afterwards, whatever. So it's beyond that, it seems. So
but as Eric pointed out in the piece, it's on the road that there's a serious nutrition problem where guys are calling DoorDash and Uber Eats. This is the National Hockey League. This is the Montreal Canadiens. This is not a minor hockey team that plays for les Cobras de Pacolet de Villassal or at a hockey tournament somewhere in Abitibi-Témiscamingue calling Uber Eats. The Montreal Canadiens calling Uber Eats and DoorDash on the road instead of having a personal chef accompany them and prepare their meals on the road. This is mind-boggling to me.
But normally they have team meals in the hotel, and with COVID and everything else, I'm not sure how much restrictions that has changed things. But you're right. You would think they would have a chef. I mean, Max Domi had his own personal chef when he was with the Canadiens. I'm sure he still does in Columbus, who makes all his meals and that. But you would think on the road, you're right. You think on the road they would have somebody like a chef traveling with the team cooking their meals. Maybe there's restrictions in the hotel that don't make that possible during COVID as far as access to kitchen and whatnot. The other thing with the NHL is you're in and out so quick in some of these cities, to try and arrange and prepare all that stuff. But yeah, you would think there would be a way, whether even catering, having a restaurant on the road deliver the food to the hotel.
Talks and BS walks. If you want to spend money on the road, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
You talked about player development, and you talked about Rob Ramage and Francis Bouillon, and who those are the coaches in player development. Here's another thing in that article on sportsnet.ca, courtesy of Eric Engels. Said Jeff Gordon, in player development, we have a couple of people in place that are really good at what they do. Rob Ramage is great. Frankie Bouillon is great. But we need much more. They're getting contact with the players and keeping in touch with them, and that's great. But the other piece is building out development plans. And we need the skills part too. We need much more of that. Oh, my God, what I'm hearing this. Stu, it's 10 years that I'm screaming that they need a skills development coach. Tim Turk is a fellow that I've been in touch with him over the years. He's a skills development coach. He can help you with your stick handling. He can help you with your quick release. He can help you with moves on breakaways and moves in close. He can help you with stick handling on 1v1 situations. This is an art. You need to practice it. You need somebody who knows how to do it to teach it to you. every day, and then you need to go out and you need to do it. And your dog's not happy this morning.
No, sorry about that. We'll stop.
No, don't be sorry. Yeah. What's going on? You usually take him out for a walk or what?
No, I think my daughter just left and he's barking.
Oh, he's not happy when you guys leave the house, huh?
That's it, exactly.
All right, okay. So this could be an answer to our question today of which former NHLer would you like to see hired and in what role? I think it could be a very skilled former NHLer as a skills development coach.
Yeah, what's interesting is that Vinny Lecavalier was asked about Brad Richards on the Zoom conference the other day, another Tampa connection, another skilled player. But, I mean, there's skills coaches out there. The Canadiens, we talk about a lot of times how the Canadiens live in the past on their 24 Stanley Cups and all the great players and the Hockey Hall of Famers, et cetera. It seems like they were living in the past as far as skills coach, lack of player development coaches, lack of an analytics department. They're way behind the times, and Jeff Gorton's coming in. He's got a lot to do. As far as coaches coming in, I mean, I've wondered why they like Guy Carbonneau. I know he's a former Canadian. It doesn't look like it. You know, Carbonneau was when he was head coach here. They had a really good, best power play in the league. They led the NHL in offense. He's a guy who knows penalty kills. He knows power play. He knows face-offs. To me, he's a guy I think could help work well in this organization. Whether Guy would want it or not, I'm not sure. I mean, he's happy with his RDS job, and he plays golf all the time, and he's almost a scratch golfer, and I think he's moved on from that part. But he's a guy I've always thought that, I don't think
Stu, if I can,
I think he could come in and help in some of the areas they need help in.
If I can, he was on the Sick podcast, I would say give or take about a month ago. And he said, you know what? I wouldn't mind going on the ice with these guys, once a week or once every couple of weeks or whatever it is, and teaching the guys how to take face-offs and stuff like that. So, yeah, Carbonneau would be great. Hey, but when Carbonneau had one of the best power plays in the league, he also had Alex Kovalev, who was a quarterback on that power play. And I'm not saying Kovalev should be a guy that they should hire as a skills coach, but he did have a couple of skills in his back pocket, and maybe somebody like him would be a great hire. Let's get back to the questions, and we'll get back to this a little later on. All right. Jean-Philippe Lessard, morning. Have you heard something about the Habs interested in Ilia Samsonov? Yes, I have. Stu?
I haven't. I don't know what you heard, Tony.
I did, as a matter of fact. Yes, 24-year-old goaltender with the Washington Capitals. Samsonov's name has come up, and Stu, what it leads me to believe, and I thought this before, I don't think Carey Price is going to finish out his contract with the Montreal Canadiens, and there was always the talk of moving him. But Stu, if they can't move him, I wouldn't be surprised if his career is over in the near future, LTIR, and they move on.
I wouldn't be surprised either, Tony. Just the fact that they went out and got Hammond. One of the things people were saying, well, why don't they get another goalie? Why don't they get another goalie while Primo was getting bombed? But there's contracts involved. There's salary cap involved. If Carey Price is coming back, that salary cap hit comes back. And it's hard to add another goalie if you think Carey Price is coming back. The fact that we were told last Monday that Carey Price wouldn't skate all week, he was just going to work out in the gym. I'm starting to wonder if we've already seen Carey Price play his last game for the Canadiens, whether it's long-term injured reserve or whether it's a buyout at the end of the season. I just think it seems weird that, again, he's shut down. He's only working out in the gym. They go out and they do get another goalie to come in and help them out in Hammond. So I'm wondering if maybe already we've seen Carey Price play his last game, and that would make sense with Samsonov moving forward if you're looking to pick up another goalie. But the Carey Price situation has been puzzling right since the beginning. This was considered a minor knee injury when he had it. They said he'd be back in 8 weeks. They said he was going to be ready to start the season. This is before he went into the NHLPA player assistance program. But the knee is still, 6 months later or whatever, and it's still an issue. So I'm wondering you also wonder if maybe Carey's seeing his buddy Shea Weber retired back home, spending time with his family, and says, you know what, that doesn't look too bad to me right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's long-term injured reserve. I don't know if the injury is that bad. And it also wouldn't surprise me if the Canadiens just decide to buy him out after the season and move on.
And, Stu, we've talked about this countless times, but we can bring it up again. I mean, Carey wanted to go to the Seattle Kraken. I mean, and anyone who doesn't believe that is either incredibly naive or, with all due respect, incredibly unintelligent.
He wanted to go. His wife wanted to go.
Yeah.
It was, and it's the story about they were just doing it for the team. He was, I'm sure he was disappointed. His family was disappointed when Seattle didn't take him.
Yeah, and listen, by the way, 15 years in Montreal as the goalie of the Montreal Canadiens. He wouldn't be the only one who would want out. There's plenty who probably would have wanted out maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Well, remember we talked a few years ago.
It is that much pressure and that taxing.
Remember we talked a few years ago, Tony, about how he was afraid to go do groceries?
Yeah.
He was, it was because he felt he was living the life of a hobbit. He couldn't go out. He couldn't go anywhere without being surrounded. I know my sister lives in Candiac on the South Shore, and not far from where Carey Price lived. And she'd see him once in a while at the Costco. He'd have his hat down and sort of hoping he could do groceries or with his family and not be recognized. But sure enough, at some point he always would be, right? So you can't go anywhere in the city without getting stopped.
I'm afraid to do groceries too, but for other reasons. I want to buy everything that I see. And I know that I can't afford it. Back to the questions. Let's go. It's Brunchin with Marinaro on the Sick Podcast. Dave, it was interesting that Marty St. Louis mentioned Toffoli was the captain in the room. What does that say about the other leaders in the room? Stu?
That was interesting. Toffoli had worn the A at times. He's not a guy I really thought that would be the way. I think what it says, though, Tony, is that, again, I think Mark Bergeron made a huge mistake when he didn't name a captain at the beginning of the year. I don't think anybody really knew in the room, like Brendan Gallagher, am I the guy who's supposed to speak up? Am I the guy who's supposed to take charge? Nick Suzuki, am I the guy? I'm the young guy. Am I supposed to come? And maybe Toffoli's the guy who stepped in and filled that sort of void. I don't understand why Bergeron didn't name a captain. He made it very clear Shea Weber wasn't going to play this season, probably wasn't ever going to play again. If Weber was actually staying in Montreal and around the team and going to practices and hanging out with the guys, I could see it. But no, he's back home in Kelowna. He's made, I think, one trip to Montreal since the season started. I don't understand why Bergeron made that decision. I think it hurt the team. I think they didn't know who the real leader was. And kudos to Toffoli. It looks like maybe he was the guy who said, okay, I'm going to step up and I'm going to step into that role. I don't think it's as much a knock on the other guys. I think it's just a case of Bergeron put them in a situation where nobody really knew who the leader was or who the leader should be.
I think
Kent Hughes has said that he'll fix that before the start of next season. They will name a captain. Yeah,
and I agree with you. I think it was a mistake, Stu. And I said, give or take about a month ago, if Toffoli stays here, I see Toffoli as being the captain. He is a former cup winner. He's a guy who wanted to come here. He signed here as an unrestricted free agent. He took below market value money to come here. He wanted to play to Suzuki. He was a mentor to Suzuki. He was a mentor to Caufield. He was a very good friend of Jake Evans. He was a great team guy. During the break, he took Evans to California with him, to Los Angeles with him.
With his girlfriend, with Evans' girlfriend also. And I knew that Toffoli was really well-liked from talking to teammates, but well-liked and leadership are sort of two different things, but obviously he had a lot of leadership with him, and and I'm sure he'll do the same role in Calgary. But again, it was nice to see a guy and his wife also embraced Montreal. I mean, his wife on Twitter, she enjoyed the city. She experienced different things. She went to Quebec City and went down the toboggan run there. She never complained about being here, even during a pandemic. Yeah, they seemed to embrace the city and love the city. They sent a nice message when they left. And it was really nice to see.
Yeah, and in his case, I don't think it was the Canadiens trying to trade Tyler Toffoli. I think it was Brad Treliving who went on record saying he wanted Toffoli ever since the 2010 draft. I think it's Darryl Sutter who he won a cup with when Sutter was coaching the Kings, who really wanted him in Calgary. They went after Toffoli. The Canadiens looked at it and said, we're going to start this rebuild anyway. We probably don't want him to be the first guy, but let's go because the price is probably right. Back to the questions.
And Kent Hughes, I think Kent Hughes, one of the things, Tony's been so honest. I'm sure he sat down with Toffoli and said, look, do you really want to stay here? Or if I get a good deal for you, would you want to go somewhere else?
Yeah. And I think he just said, I'd like to stay here, but if I'm going to go, Calgary would be great. LA would be great. But don't do it if you don't think it's good for the organization. If you do think it's good for the organization, I'm good with it. Jason Party, hello from Newfoundland, Tony and Stu. Do you guys think that Alex Burroughs, Trevor Latowski, and Luke Richardson are safe, or will the Habs bring in new assistant coaches in the offseason?
I think Luke Richardson's probably the safest of them. He was a teammate with Marty St. Louis in Tampa. Marty St. Louis called him the ultimate teammate. Luke Richardson's respected by all the players on the team. They all love him. So if there's one guy that's going to stay, I think it would be him. The other guys, I'm not so certain about. I think there might be changes there.
Yeah, and at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Marty St. Louis gives them a chance, an opportunity, because all his life he wanted a chance and an opportunity. And when he got it, he made the most of it. But it's not uncommon for a coach to come in and want to bring in an assistant that he's comfortable with that can insulate him. You would think that at some point they're going to bring somebody in. If it's not going to happen in the offseason, it'll probably happen the season after. More questions. Simon Jolicoeur. Good morning, Tony and Stu. We often talk about Sherrod and Patrice being shopped. Do you think Brett Kulak will be on the move too? What's his value? He's UFA at the end of the year, Stu.
Yeah, that's why I think it'll the thing is, you got to still have enough defensemen here to finish the season, right? You can't get rid of all your defense. Who's going to finish the year? So I think with Kulak, it's a case of they're going to wait and see what the offers are. If they get a great offer, I imagine they'll move him. I don't know. Maybe there's interest in keeping him here beyond this season. I don't know. But again, they got to have some defensemen here still to finish the season. But I think at this point, the way Kent Hughes is operating, the more assets he can get, the more draft picks he can get, he's going to stock up. So if somebody gives him a good offer for Brett Kulak, I imagine he will move him.
But at the same time, if you're thinking the Canadians are going to make a bunch of trades, and at one point I think we did because it was rebuild, I'll take you back again to that 40-minute sit-down interview with Eric Engels of Sportsnet and Jeff Gordon, the executive VP of Hockey Ops, on players' trade value, if we can bring that up. You have a lot of players that are good players that for whatever reason, whether it's injuries or COVID this season, just haven't been up to their standards. What does that tell you? That their value is probably a little lower than it usually is. To trade everybody at a lesser value than they really are, even though they have some term left, I don't think we'll do that. I think what we do and what we're doing is we're gauging the value of our players. Figure out, okay, is that worth it now or is it worth it maybe later? Stu, yeah. I've gone on record as saying that this management team of Gordon and Hughes inspires a lot of confidence, for me anyway. And I think they're going to be the most successful management team in terms of success long-term and sustainability since the last management team that won the Stanley Cup in '93. And I viewed them from the very beginning, especially Jeff Gordon. I view Jeff Gordon as a businessman, a CEO of a big company. And I view Kent Hughes almost like a stockbroker. And you have this businessman and this stockbroker who came together, and they're trying to take a look at what's best for their business and take a look at what's best for their stocks and their shares and their assets. And they're playing the stock market, and they're saying, in the stock market, what do, Stu? You buy low and you sell high. You don't buy high and sell low.
Yeah.
You buy low and you sell high. And I think they're looking at it and saying, look, Patrice wants out. We want to rebuild. We want to trade him too. But if we can get 33% more for Patrice at the draft because we're going to build him up 33% better between now and the end of the year, they're going to trade him then and not now.
Yeah, that quote was, I think, more referring to Patrice than Kulak because of Kulak's free agency status.
Of course.
He's going to leave for nothing if they can get something tonight. But yeah, with Patrice, I think that's what he's talking about. Like, why, even though Patrice wants out of here, he has a contract. He signed a long-term contract to stay here. He's not happy. His wife's not happy. But that doesn't mean the Canadians have to make a trade. And the thing with Kent Hughes, again, yes, they are running this like a business, Tony. And they seem to be, they're two really smart guys, and they're two really honest guys, it seems. And we were talking about with Toffoli, I'm sure they were honest with Toffoli, and I'm sure they've been honest with Patrice. Look, and Kent Hughes has gone on record saying, look, if we get a trade-off that works for both sides, we will trade Jeff Patrice. But if it doesn't, we're not going to trade him. And I think you're right. Maybe more teams in the offseason will have cap room to be able to take Patrice in. As you say, maybe he'll play better moving forward. He already played better the last game. He looks much more comfortable with St. Louis as a coach and his system. At practice the other day, they were doing a power play drill and having Patrice sort of walking the line and getting his shots through. And St. Louis was right behind him and talking to him after every drill and talking to him. And Patrice was listening, paying attention. So, yeah, I don't think they're in a – I don't think, Hughes was asked the other day, is it going to be a fire sale? Are you going to trade 5 guys? And he said, I'm not planning to trade 5 guys right now. But if I get offers that I can't turn down that are so good, I'm going to trade 5 guys. And that's the way they're looking at it. I think your analogy there's as a CEO and a stockbroker, I think that's a really good way of looking at it, Tony. I think that's the way they, appearance-wise, when they stay on the stage, Gordon looks like that CEO type guy, and Kent Hughes. But they're just the thing that's impressed me the most about both of them. I haven't had a one-on-one with Gordon yet, but I did with Hughes. Is just they're smart and they're honest. Like talking with Kent Hughes, he's not spinning BS. And there's certain things he can't say, and certain things he can't say to the media. But they've been open and honest about what their plans are moving forward, and including with Jeff Petrie. If we get a good deal that works for both sides, we'll trade him. If we don't, we won't. When asked about Ben Sherratt, he said, if I get a good deal tomorrow, I'm going to trade Ben Sherratt tomorrow. If it's 2 weeks from now, I'll trade him in 2 weeks. So there. And then he also spoke about, you are taking a risk with Sherratt if he does get hurt, which makes me believe that trade will happen sooner rather than later.
And, Stu, one of the things that probably irked the organization in previous years and maybe even the previous decade was a lot of speculation that was going on, right? So what do you do to lessen the speculation? You become as transparent as possible, and you basically show whichever cards you're willing to show and be as honest as you can be, within reason, of course, because you can't divulge your entire game plan to everyone. But at the same time, let's be honest here.
Well,
teams aren't stupid. I mean, the Canadians are calling them saying, we're going to rebuild. So they know. So they have nothing to hide.
I wrote a column the other day, Tony, talking about that, about the difference in transparency and openness. And the GM can't be totally transparent. He can't tell you everything he's doing. He can't tell the players everything he's doing. But they can be open. And in 2018, after the Canadians finished 28th in the overall standings, and Jeff Molson had that news conference, and we're going to be more transparent, we're going to be more open. Never happened. But one of the reasons he said he wanted to do that, he'd be listening to sports radio or whatever, or podcasts, and hearing fans talking. And he said, I wish they knew a little bit more so that they could be more informed when they're arguing or wondering why. And it never happened. But now it is. So now when fans are arguing or discussing Jeff Petrie or Ben Sherratt, why don't they trade him right now? They sort of know why, right?
Yeah.
Why haven't they traded Petrie? They know why now, because he has said, if I get a good deal, I'm going to trade him. If I don't, so they're doing now what Jeff Molson said they were going to do 4 years ago, which didn't last very long. Mark Bergeron was not, at the end, Bergeron was picking which reporters he was going to talk to and which ones he wasn't going to talk to. They weren't transparent. But now, and that's, to me, when Molson said that, like, as a media member, I don't care if Carey Price doesn't want to talk to me or whatever player doesn't want to talk to me. That's their right. But I think fans want to hear
of course
from these guys. And I think fans want to know that, especially season ticket holders that pay a lot of money, they want to know. And when Molson said that, we want fans to have a better idea. We want to be more open with our fans to let them know what we're planning to do or what we're trying to do without divulging everything. And now, 4 years later, we're finally starting to see that.
Okay, speaking of season tickets, because you just brought it up, the Canadians have been putting out there on social media different flyers and advertisement to sign up for season tickets. There are several of them. This one here is one of them. Look at that.
Yeah.
A new era has started for season tickets. Marty St. Louis, Kent Hughes, and Jeff Gordon. Stu, the reason why I bring this up is, once again, folks, even though he came here for 37 games and had the interim tag, make no mistake, even if Marty St. Louis loses every game between now and the end of the year, Marty St. Louis is going to be the coach of the Montreal Canadiens next season.
When was the last time you saw the Canadians advertising season tickets, too? It was sort of like, you want a season ticket, get on our waiting list. So
yeah,
a bad product on the ice, COVID, there's a lot of things that have happened now. I mean, I know a couple of people who had season tickets who canceled them. People who would cancel them realizing how much money they were spending on them and now wondering moving forward. Companies have had cutbacks and budgets for companies that had season tickets. So it's going to, moving forward, the season ticket thing is like just that ad. The Canadians are going to have to work on it a bit. I think they're going to. It's going to be difficult. It'll be a little easier now.
Okay.
That they brought in this new management team, and that's what they're advertising. That's what they're promoting moving forward. But I think the days of getting on a waiting list and waiting 10 years to get a season ticket are over right now. I think if you want to get a season ticket, you're not going to have to wait that long.
All right. It's the Sick Podcast. And of course, you can join us on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. We're over 4,000 strong. I want to be able to take this to 40,000 strong. And then after that, I want to be able to take it to 400,000 strong. I think I could do it. Really, I think I can. How do you do it? I'll tell you how you do it. You put together great content. You have great conversation. You have great guests like Stu Cowan. You do it with a lot of passion. You do it with a lot of energy. And then you, in turn, will tell your friends about it. So tell your friends. Sharing is caring. Tell them to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And when we upload an episode or we go live, they will be notified. It's absolutely free to subscribe. But the more of you that do, the more money I make. It's a beautiful thing. All right, back to the questions we go. I wish. Marvin Matthews. Stu, Martin St. Louis seems to have a lot of confidence in Chris Weidman. Can you see the team offering Weidman a new contract?
That's a good question. That's interesting because he does. And Weidman's sort of a power play specialist. That's one of the reasons he was brought here. It's an inexpensive contract. That's a really good question. I wonder if that might be a possibility. Weidman has spoken, he went to the KHL, and every day he was in the KHL, in the back of his mind, he just wanted to get back to the NHL. He obviously didn't enjoy the experience over there that much. He was happy to come back here and sign with the Canadiens. So I wonder, I guess the answer would be maybe. I have an answer for this. Weidman's a UFA at the end of the year. Kulak's a UFA at the end of the year. Had you asked me this question at the beginning of the season, I would have told you Kulak had more chance of coming back. The Canadiens head coach was Dominic Ducharme. If Claude Julien would have been the head coach, I would have told you Kulak had more chance of coming back. With Marty St. Louis as the head coach, he wants puck-moving defensemen. He wants someone who can skate well. He wants a good first pass, and Kulak does skate well, by the way. Yeah.
But Chris Weidman is a more offensive defenseman. He has a very good first pass. He can go on a second unit of a power play. He puts him out there when he's down a goal and he needs a goal. He put him out there if they pull the goalie. I think there's a chance because he kind of plays the way Marty St. Louis wants this team to play going forward. I think he's got a better chance to return than Kulak. It doesn't mean he's a better defenseman than Kulak. I think it falls more in line with Marty St. Louis.
Well, following up on that too, I think Kulak is underrated in Montreal in a lot of ways. He's a guy who's been first pairing, second pairing, third pairing, healthy scratch, bounced all over the place. I think if Kulak is slotted in as a regular sixth defenseman with 15 minutes of ice time or whatever a game is, you mentioned, he's a really good skater. He can move the puck. He can be physical. I think he's been underrated in Montreal, and if the Canes don't want him here, I'm sure he'll end up somewhere else.
Okay, rapid fire. I take one, you take one. Let's go. Back to the question. Sharing is caring. Quinn Sorochin says, after seeing many people talk about Cole Caufield's recent success, do you still believe he should be in Laval until season's end? I do, by the way. Quinn, it's an interesting question. I always thought he should. The way he was playing under Ducharme, the way he's playing under St. Louis, no. He's scoring goals right now. He's got 4 with St. Louis. He could have had 5 had that one not been offside. He keeps on going like this. He's not going anywhere. Stu, the next one's for you. Erica Cantini, over under 15 goals for Caufield now until the end of the season. I believe he has 5, Stu.
Yeah, under. That's a big jump right there. But I think, he's a different type of player right now. That's a lot of goals to score for any player in the last, 30-something games left. So I would say under, but I could see him maybe getting 10. But the previous question too, I think now sending him back to Laval would hurt his confidence more than help it. So I wouldn't do it.
All right, okay. I'm going to shock you with this one. Over. Look at the pace he's on ever since St. Louis. If he continues on this pace, he's going to go over. So I'm beer half full, even though the can is all full today. Look at that. What a beauty, 8.6. All right, next one. I'll take it. Ralph Jr. Trotso. Who are the next 3 players to leave Montreal? Ben Sherratt, Arturi Lekkinen, and Brett Kulak. Because keeping Kulak longer will not get you more value. He's UFA at the end of the year, so they'll try and get something. Sherratt's UFA at the end of the year, they'll try and get something. And that's the way I see it. You, Stu?
I might throw Petrie in there. As much as we were talking before how they're not going to rush to move him, I think there's going to be teams as we get closer to the deadline, I don't want to say desperate, really wanting a defenseman who can be a solid top 4 guy. And I think Hughes will get an offer that he likes for Petrie before the deadline.
And why did I say Lekken was RFA at the end of the year? Because like the stock market, his stock has probably never been higher. Last time it was this high was when he scored 18 goals in his rookie season. Next one. This one for you, Stu. Stu, why doesn't Pezzetta play anymore?
Because Pezzetta is really an AHL player. the COVID, all the injuries have brought him up here. But I like everything about Mike Pizzetti. He got an opportunity. He made the most of it. As more guys are getting healthy and coming back, he's getting nudged out. But as more trades happen before the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the lineup. I'd love to see him land a job somewhere else in the NHL. I think of Nick Delorier playing in Anaheim. Pizzetti is sort of a similar type of player, an energy type guy. So I think it's just a case of a numbers game. As more and more guys got healthy, you got bumped lower down in the depth chart.
Next. I've been told we have a ton of questions. Robbie, why would the Canadians trade Lekken? How many first-round picks do you need? He has proven to be very good in his role and should be re-signed. What they should not have done is signed Armia. The reason why they should trade Lekken, and I love Lekken too, by the way, because I think he gives you everything he has, is that his stock is at a high. He's going to end up signing a contract above $3 million. It'll be probably a 3-year deal at $10 million or a 4-year deal at $14 million. And then in a couple of years, you're going to say what Lekkonen's doing that could get somebody on the fourth line to do it for $1 million. That's why you should trade him. Next, for Stu. Kelly says, Nick Kiprio said the other day that the Canadiens management were getting a lot of calls on Josh Anderson. Do you think he might be moved, Stu?
Goes back to what I was saying. Kent Hughes said the other day. I'm not looking to trade 5 players, but if I get 5 offers that are, too good to turn down, I'll do it. So I think Anderson's probably a guy they want to keep around here. But I mean, if somebody offers you 2 first-round draft picks or something like that, I think that'd beat the trade. But I don't think it's a priority for them to move Anderson at this point. But again, I think Kent Hughes is all ears for anybody and anyone on this team if the offer is right.
The big question, I think, is going to be, is Brendan Gallagher going to be moved in the offseason? Because I know he made a great play the other day, but for what he's been bringing to the ice, with all due respect to him, you're going to have a hard time selling it on $6.5 million for the next 5 years after this year.
On Gallagher, Tony, he's obviously been playing hurt all year, and he even spoke the other day about it, how the short summer, Brendan's a workout fiend, right? He didn't have this summer to do his regular workout. He had hip issues last year. He had a groin issue. He hasn't been the Brendan Gallagher that we know because of the injury. The effort level's always there. The question is, you say during the offseason, like with a full offseason of back to his regular workout, can he come back and be 100% healthy? Or are there just so many miles in that body right now that he's never going to be 100% again?
Next question. From Huang Tran. With Montreal being so deep on the right side, do you see Caufield permanently playing on the left wing? On the right wing, of course, you have Josh Anderson, you have Yoel Armia, you have Cole Caufield. On the left wing, you have Hoffman, you have Drouin, you have Lekkinen. You had Gallagher on the right side as well, by the way. With Drouin out of the lineup, there's a chance for Caufield to be on the off wing. When he comes back, maybe he goes back to right wing, but I like Cole Caufield on the off wing. Guys that are shooters, Stu, that have great one-timers especially, I like them on the off wing. So I like Caufield on the off wing, and I like Hoffman on the off wing.
I'm not comparing Caufield to Ovechkin, but Ovechkin plays the off wing. And I'm wondering if that's one of the things you talk about Marty St. Louis and the impact he's had on Caufield. Maybe that's one of the things he came in here and said, that kid should be playing on the off wing, be able to use the shot more.
Next question. Jeff, any chance Patrice Bergeron or Chris Letang sign on as unrestricted free agents with the Canadiens? If they do, and they sign on for a couple of years at a lot of money, based on what they're trying to do here, I don't know. I have a feeling Letang would want to finish his career with Pittsburgh, that Bergeron would want to finish his career with Boston. And if the Canadiens are going to be below average next year, do they want to come here simply as mentors? I would say no, but I wouldn't be shocked if one of the two would end up coming. I know that Pierre LeBrun has hinted at the possibility of a Johnny Gaudreau signing with the Canadiens. So if a Johnny Gaudreau would sign with the Canadiens and he's UFA at the end of the year, let's just say if he would, then it's easier for another one of those guys to come here. But for one of those guys to come here without a guy like that coming first to say, okay, they're turning it around, I would doubt it. Stu, the next one's for you.
Yeah, I think I'd put Latang. I think the chances of Latang are probably better than Bergeron. I think Bergeron is captain of the Bruins. Boston's going to want him to finish there, and he will too. But it wouldn't shock me if Latang, and plus, who was Latang's agent? Well, both agents. They're both agents of. Can't use the agent for both of them, but I think Latang's more of a possibility.
Stu, Alessandro Izzi asks you, should they hire Shea Weber as a defense coordinator for development or something like that to work with the young defensemen in the organization?
Kent Hughes, when I spoke with him on the one-on-one, said they'd like to find a role for Weber in the organization. But to me, I think it's time to move on from Shea Weber. It's we spoke with the captain thing earlier. He's still captain, even though he's out in Kelowna. He hasn't been back in Montreal, except from once, I think, to see the doctors. I think it's time. To me, it's time to move on from Shea Weber, and so I wouldn't do it. But maybe, Hughes seems to think that if there is a spot for him, they'll bring him in.
He was obviously a great leader and a great captain as a player, but not addressing the fans since last season for me was an error in judgment, and it's wrong. Next one. Darcy Barnes, do you think Hughes will be able to sign Jordan Harris? Yes, I would bet the house on it. Next, Stu, for you. Sheldon says, if St. Louis has the same effect on Drouin as Caufield, do they keep Drouin or sell him high?
If they get a high offer, they sell him.
Jonathan Drouin's contract is up at the end of next year. He's not re-upping with the Canadians. I don't see it. I just don't.
Jonathan Drouin is who he is. We've seen him. He is what he is. He's an offensive type player, 50 points, not a 80-point guy or whatever. He's been around the league enough. He's not going to. Caufield's a young guy. The new coach is going to have more of an impact on a young guy just breaking into the league than somebody who's been around as long as Drouin has.
I think Marty St. Louis going forward is going to want to have guys that give 120% every night. I'll just leave it at that. Next. Gaetan, who will be the second center if Suzuki is the first? I don't think they have a second center on this team right now. And by the way, Christian Dvorak's another guy that I would trade.
Yeah.
And once again, all depends on the stock market. I would imagine right now the stock is lower. And his stock was higher when they acquired him. But I've seen enough from Christian Dvorak to know that Jake Evans could end up doing what he does, making $3 million less on the cap.
I was just going to mention Jake Evans because, man, has he impressed me, that kid. He just keeps getting better and better and works hard all the time. Well liked by his teammates. You mentioned about the Foley taking Evans and his girlfriend to California with them on his. And I wonder the impact that Marty St. Louis is going to have on him. I don't think Jake Evans is a second line center moving forward, but he's really impressed me, and I think he's, I think he was 6th or 7th round pick. What a find he was, and I like everything about Jake Evans, and I like the way he's improved, and I think Marty St. Louis is going to really help him also.
By the way, some are probably watching this and saying, well, Shane Wright's going to be that second-line centerman. You know what? I always thought the price was right, and it might be, but I have to tell you, this kid Slavkovsky, 17-year-old winger, who was slated to go in the top 10. He was top 5 or top 6 on a lot of people's lists. He just won the MVP of the men's hockey at the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. He's a 6'4" winger, 218 pounds. He plays for TPS Turku in Finland, and he scored 7 goals at the Olympics. Was the top player, the MVP, and 2 goals in that bronze medal game with Slovakia beating Sweden. So look out, because his stock just went up big time. We're talking about players and whether or not they have a future here. Michel Bergeron says the Canadians absolutely have to sign Samuel Montembeault to an extension.
I don't know if they absolutely have to, but I can see why they would. You got to remember, too, he's been playing with an injury, with a wrist injury this year, but he's to me, he's definitely moved ahead of Caden Primo on the goalie depth chart with this organization. He just looks much more. Primo seems to have that deer in the headlights look every time he plays in the NHL. Montembeault looks confident, and he's able to bounce back from a bad game also. Do they have to? No, but I would definitely be. I'd be having talks with his agent now and trying to sign him, because I like what I've seen from him. just as far as battling and if he's not playing in Montreal, if he's playing in Laval or whatever. But I just think, to me, he's moved ahead of Caden Primo on the depth chart. So I think as far as having a young goalie in the system, I would definitely be having talks with him about it.
Next question. 5 more minutes if we can. Let's go. Right here in the Sick Podcast. Franklin Jones, Tony and Stu. The ownership group is making major changes. Obviously, they are way overdue once they have completed the front office coaching changes. Do you think the franchise will be sold?
That's a good question. If it was sold, what local ownership would be buying it? If it's selling for 1 point whatever billion, you've got to remember, when George Gillette came in here and bought the team, nobody wanted him.
Well, I could think of one family.
Saputo's?
Of course.
Yeah. But do they want to put that much money out? I mean, they've been, you would know soccer better than me. I don't want to say they've been frugal, but I mean, they haven't been, with the impact of CF Montreal, they haven't been spending money like Toronto FC does.
No, but it doesn't mean that Toronto FC spending money the way they do is the right thing, the right way to go as well. They have a plan, they have a vision, and they want to get players who still have untapped potential, and they want to get them at great value, and they want to sell them and be a competitive team at the same time. Should be noted as well, the family, they all grew up huge hockey fans. Mm-hmm. I would think if the Canadians would go on the market, I think the Saputo family would be interested. I have no knowledge of that. It's just my gut that tells me that. At the same time, I would think that if Jeff Molson wanted to sell the team, probably the best time to sell the team was right after the Stanley Cup final, when they came that close. You would think that their value would never be higher, and then there was a pandemic. So if I were a betting man, I'd bet that Jeff Molson would want to hang on to the team. But who knows? Only he knows. All right, where are we going? I don't think they're for sale. Anthony DiPietro, but I wouldn't be shocked if they were. What will Lecavalier do with the organization? Stu, I want to tackle this one if I can.
Go ahead.
I'll let you speak if you'd like to as well. He's going to talk to unrestricted free agents and say, I always wanted to go to Montreal. I even okayed a trade to go there. Unfortunately, it fell through. My biggest regret is not going to Montreal. I think he can help in that respect. He obviously can help in the respect of scouting, the way he scouted Emil Heinemann. And I think he can always help in terms of, they say 2 minds are better than 1. Well, 3 are better than 2, and 4 are better than 3, and 5 are better than 4. And it's a different opinion. And this one coming from a guy who played the game. Also, I could see him go on the ice with some of those centermen and work with them from time to time. Maybe come down for a week, a month, get on the ice and work with the centermen after practice, Stu.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned that, attracting free agents would be part of it. But if I'm a free agent and he's trying to sell me on coming to Montreal, my first question is, why aren't you living there? No, he's staying back home in Tampa. That would be my first question to him at that point. I think it's more a sound, another voice in the room, as someone that Kent Hughes trusts. We talked about Heinemann, how Hughes had him watch a video, and I'm sure Lecavalier's input had a lot to do with Hughes wanting him in that trade when they traded to Foley. So I think it's just somebody else for Kent Hughes to bounce ideas off of, that he knows, he trusts. As Vinny said, I've been speaking hockey for 20 years with Marty St. Louis and Kent Hughes. So I think for both of those guys, it's just the guy that after a game that called him and say, what do you think about Cole Caufield last night? What would you tell him? Do you think he's good on the offside? Do you think so I think it's just that. I think it's like a buddy. What was that show, the $64 million question or something, when you could phone a friend? I think Vinny Lecavalier is sort of that phone a friend option.
Deal or no deal.
Deal or no deal. I think he's the guy that you can phone a friend and you can get his advice. Vinny, I want you to watch this guy. Calgary's playing tomorrow night. Can you watch this guy? I think that's the role he has right now. He said he's going to try and get free agents to come here and help. But again, if I was a free agent, I'd say, well, if Montreal's such a great place to live, why aren't you living there right now since you're working for the Canadians? And
the best one was the guy who called his father and said, Dad, I don't have to ask you. I already know the answer. I just want to tell you I'm going to be a millionaire. That was pretty cool, too. Maybe the last 1 or 2 more, and then we'll wrap it up. Brunchin with Marinaro, along with Stu Cowan on this Sunday morning. I am a Mac and Max Power with this reconstruction. Do you think Montreal will depart from building with goaltending as the foundation? Yes. I think they'd be happy with a Jake Allen of this world or an Ilia Samsonov of this world going forward, and they don't need a Vasilevsky or a Price of this world. I think where they're going to want to invest their money is going to be on offensive players.
And the
And I
new
think
world,
they're going to want to have puck-moving defensemen, Stu.
the new world in the NHL is having 2 goalies, right?
Yeah.
The one who plays 50 games and one who plays 32 games. That's the new NHL. And you can get 2 guys combined making $6 million, maybe. That's $4.5 million less than Carey Price is making.
Because you know what happens if you give a number one 10.5. If he gets hurt, you're in trouble. Last one of the day. Can we do this? Last one. Marco Monaco. I heard Hughes is interested in retaining 50% of Sherratt's salary till the end of the season to get a bigger return. Genius move. What do you guys think? It's absolutely genius.
Yeah.
He only makes $3.5 million. There's only a couple of months left in the season. If he retains a little bit of that, it's going to be nothing to get a bigger value. It's very smart. Stu?
And he's already shipping out. He shipped out the Foley's salary. There's been more salaries going out the door, so it's nothing. It's if that makes Sherratt more appealing and gets a better return, that's, as you said, Tony is like a stockbroker selling stocks, and he's a smart guy, and he knows it from the other side of the business. And him and Gorton together have impressed me. I think they're going to work well together, and I think there's reason moving forward for Canadiens fans to be optimistic right now with this new management team they put in place.
I am very optimistic. I really, really like some of the things that they're doing and the way they envision things and their plan. And they're going out there and they're surgical and they're clinical and the way they're doing it. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with everyone watching every Sunday morning. I'm really impressed with you, Stu Cowan. I saw Tony at Costco, says AG. Yes.
Did you have your hat pulled down?
I did not. No, as a matter of fact, I like to be noticed, actually, when I go to Costco. And if you take one quick look at me, I'm not hard to point out either.
I had somebody come up to me once and ask if I was Mark Messier.
Is that right? Yeah? Jonathan says it's his favorite Sunday stream. Jonathan, we really enjoy bringing it to you. Stu, and ending, the Canadiens are in New York versus the Islanders today, and they host the Toronto Maple Leafs tomorrow. What do you think we're going to see?
I'm looking forward to seeing the Hamburglar in net today.
Yeah.
I think that's, the thing is, we were talking about before, the Canadiens have become unwatchable, right? I mean, I was saying my friends, thank God I get paid to watch these guys. But, the game the other night was entertaining. That's the most entertaining game we've had in a long time. Today, I'm looking forward to seeing the Hamburglar play. Maybe he gets shelled. Maybe he doesn't. But they've just made it Caufield playing better. You want to watch them again. You want to watch them. You want to see how Marty St. Louis does. So it's that alone is something I didn't think they'd be able to accomplish this season, and they've already done that. So that's a good first step.
I agree with you, Stu. I want to watch them too. I know you want to watch them as well. I'm going to take you to the cash going forward, and we're going to watch a couple of games. Thanks for doing this, Stu. We'll talk to you again next week if all goes well. Cheers, man.
All right, take care, buddy.
Have a great Sunday, everyone. It's Brunchin with Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. Tell all your friends about it, and follow us on YouTube. Subscribe. It's absolutely free, and you'll be notified once an episode is uploaded or once we go live. Happy Sunday. Have a great one. It's game day.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature.